Wrestling fans don't agree on a lot of things, but one thing we can probably all agree on is that wrestling is an inherently tough job. This is supposed to be scripted combat. Yes, things have changed immeasurably over the years in terms of style, and the sport's move towards a more open-minded and expressive attitude is well overdue, even though much about the art form remains in the Stone Age. However, the core premise is still the same. From Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen to Manami Toyota and Charlotte Flair, these people are hardened, skilled warriors in battles predicated on grit, determination, and iron will. Gimmicks vary from wrestler to wrestler, but at the end of the day, it's supposed to be a fight. A rather weird fight with spandex, baby oil, and flippy dippy doodads, but a fight nonetheless. Now, not every wrestling character has to be an outward badass, but take a look at the beatings even a guy like Marco Stunt takes. If you break them down, you'll see that toughness is definitely there, even if it isn't pushed to the forefront. Wrestling takes a heavy toll on its performers, physically and mentally. The toughness at the core of their TV characters cannot repel every single pressure, and for the human being on the other side, sometimes self-reflection is the best form of healing. These people might play superheroes on TV, but life under wrestling's bright lights brings great strain. I'm Andy for What Culture Wrestling, and here are 8 wrestlers who admitted to cracking under pressure. Number 8. AJ Styles. Still one of the finest matches from New Japan's current boom period, AJ Styles vs Shinsuke Nakamura was hailed a Wrestle Kingdom masterpiece from the moment the final bell rang on the 4th of January 2016. Then when they landed in WWE just a few months later, or in AJ's case, a few weeks later, there was hopes of an immediate rerun on American soil. But the fans were made to wait. While AJ was straight to the main roster and flirting with title contention within just a few months, Nakamura was down in NXT. He had that explosive debut against Sami Zayn, and his run was a net positive on the whole, that's for sure, but still, people were yearning, wondering what would finally happen when the King of Strong Style met AJ Styles in WWE. So it finally happened at WrestleMania 34. Nakamura won the Royal Rumble and immediately named Styles as his challenger. Unfortunately, disappointment followed. The ensuing matches throughout their long feud were, well, good, some might even say great, but they couldn't live up to the expectations established at Wrestle Kingdom 10. And Styles, to his credit, recently copped to this on a recent episode of After the Bell. He said, "Expectations are way too high," adding that he knew Nakamura felt that as well. Now, there are obviously more reasons as to why the matches didn't live up to the standards expected, because if we're being honest, WWE's road agenting system rarely allows for the incandescence of Styles vs Nakamura 1, though said expectations unquestionably contributed to the downfall. AJ even said it himself. Number 7. Ric Flair. Ric Flair's TV character is one of the most secure personalities of all time, though the man behind it has often struggled with self-doubt enforced by the pressures of the business several times in his career. When sons David and Reed were brought in to be attacked by the NWO in WCW, Ric, who'd already been suffering from anxiety attacks, struggled. And David himself would labour to cope with pro wrestling's rigours, never truly adjusting to a game that he just wasn't built for, having originally only been brought in to work a single angle. Now, WrestleMania X8 was another tough night for the Nature Boy. As revealed during a recent appearance on Steve Austin's Broken Skull Sessions, Flair was really nervous about facing The Undertaker on the grandest stage of them all, because he didn't know if he was still capable of giving the dead man the kind of bout he deserved. Ric was wrought with uncertainty all the way up to his ring entrance, and even flopped his signature over the top rope bump, though a quick big boot from his hefty opponent quickly reset the clock, and he was ticking once again. Number 6. Teddy Hart. One of professional wrestling's greatest lost stars is Teddy Hart, who has constantly proven himself his own worst enemy since entering the business in the mid-90s, flaming out of WWE on several occasions and earning a spot on many a smaller promotion's blacklist for myriad disciplinary issues. Unquestionably a phenomenally talented wrestler, Teddy has struggled to live up to his famous surname, and earlier this year, he actually spoke about it during an appearance on the Two-Man Power Trip podcast. He said, said, "I can't think of any worse pressure cooker. Over the years, I like to think that I've been put under a lot of pressure, but in certain aspects, maybe I have cracked just a little bit," adding that it's an honour to him to be part of the Hart family. Unfortunately, though, we're in 2020 and the guy's still getting fired from promotions like MLW for behavioural issues. Seems like he's never going to get it together. Number 5. Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero's world title win was one of the most cathartic moments in WWE history. Overcoming the monstrous Brock Lesnar in a perfectly played No Way Out 2004 match, the Ultimate Giant Killing preceded a massive emotional outpour. Latino Heat grabbed his new strap, mounted the announce table, and held the prize aloft with his flag. There was barely a dry eye in the house, and at that moment he was one with the people, as he had been for much of his career. This was a triumph the likes of which few get to experience in wrestling, and well deserved, though running with the WWE Championship put great strain and pressure on Eddie. In the words of Jim Ross, Eddie could fall into bouts of self-imposed depression when he felt like he didn't have the best match on a show. That equates to having great pride in what one does. Now, things were amplified when he became the top dog, particularly as SmackDown's business took a hit while he was at the helm. Forced to work through several mounting injuries and with a JBL character that wasn't truly connecting yet, it took a toll, with Guerrero telling confidants that the weight on his shoulders was the hardest thing he'd ever carried in the business. Number 4. David San Martino. I mean, you know who this guy's dad is, right? So of course there was a lot of pressure on David San Martino, and the title of his shoot video says it itself. Life in the shadow of the living legend. Poor Davey had a lot to live up to. His father, Bruno, was the rock around which the McMahon wrestling revolution was built. If such a thing even exists at all, the list of wrestlers who played a more important part in WWE's rise is very, very short, and no man could ever live up to that, including Bruno's own flesh and blood. David joined WWE in 1984 with his dad working as his manager. When that didn't stick, Bruno came out of retirement to team with David, though the wee man was out of the company after jumping to the AWA in 1986. This came not long after deliberately throwing a match he was booked to win against a jobber named Ron Shaw, giving up just mere seconds into what has come to be dubbed as the Phantom Submission match. There isn't a second generation wrestler on the planet who doesn't face some kind of pressure to live up to what came before. David was a middling performer, and the gulf between him and Bruno, unfortunately, was huge. Number 3. Steve Austin. Although Steve Austin walking out on WWE in 2002 was the product of many things, the tipping point was the promotion asking him to wrestle Brock Lesnar on an episode of Raw. Stone Cold showed up at the building, got angry that WWE wanted to throw away a potential money-making match on free TV, and took the next flight home, leaving the company in chaos. This came just 2 weeks after he'd been on the old web series Bite This, calling the company's creative, and I quote, piss poor. And then in 2017, he spoke about the incident and said, "I've always been willing to do business when it comes time to do business, but that wasn't business." And it's hard to argue with him, really. Austin cracked. By his own admission, he blew his top. He said, "I was so hot and I made a knee-jerk reaction," adding that he should have gone to Vince McMahon and dealt with the issue man to man, rather than, in his own words, taking his ball and going home. It was a messy situation that instigated a standoff between two of WWE's most hard-headed personalities, Austin and Vince McMahon, and it didn't end until Stone Cold had negotiated an initial $650,000 fine down to a mere $250,000. Number 2. The Rock. One of the most dramatic career turnarounds in WWE history belongs to Dwayne Johnson, whose transformation from Rocky Maivia to The Rock took him from failed vanilla babyface to a persona that would make him the most successful man in the business. As infallible as the man might seem, the vitriol got to a young Rock. He was really quite shaken up by it. He revealed as much in an interview for Oprah's Masterclass in 2016, speaking specifically on his experience at WrestleMania 13, where his match with the Sultan, aka Rikishi, was met with loud chants of "Rocky sucks," like many before and after it. He said, "That was a sobering moment. It wasn't me personally they didn't like, it's that I wasn't being me. I wasn't real or authentic. Who is this guy in wrestling who's smiling when he's getting beat? And soon after this, Vince McMahon pitched to Rock that, hey man, if you're gonna get booed anyway, you might as well go heel. Thus began the meteoric rise. And at number 1, Drew McIntyre. That Drew McIntyre feels like a real, genuine human being while simultaneously playing the role of a credible prize fighter is one of the key reasons why he appears to have connected with the fan base as a top WWE champion, with the lines between the man and his on-air persona blurred since he turned babyface. McIntyre's first WWE run ended in failure, and you know that because it's the storyline. Brought in as Vince McMahon's chosen one, he left as a comedy jobber in 3MB, his mainstream wrestling career seemingly consigned to the scrap heap. The work, dedication and graft he put into rebuilding himself on the indies on the road back to WWE, and now the biggest role of his career, became part of his character as he closed in on the Raw throne earlier this year, admitting in promos and interviews that the guy just didn't hack it. The Drew McIntyre of 2020 needed the Drew McIntyre of 2014 to finally conquer the throne. Crumbling under the pressure of being branded a chosen one as a green rookie was an essential step in his ascension and speaks to his character. So that's our list, but what do you guys think, and can you think of any others? Let us know down in the comments section below. After that, don't forget to like, share, subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. Then you can follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE and myself at Andy H. Murray, where you can tell me how wrong I am. Goodbye.